Dear all, thank you and welcome to Fått, the Green Liberal think tank. Together with civil rights defender, we are very happy to invite you to a conversation with Julia Maciocha, co-founder of Polish Pride Alliance and also chairperson of Warsaw Pride, the organizer of Poland's largest demonstration equality parade as well.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Yes, I just left this year. I'm free. That's why I was able to come in May to Stockholm.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't updated there. But you are most welcome to Stockholm, Julia. And I learned that this was your first trip to Stockholm and Sweden.
Yes. And I absolutely adore it. I heard it's because of the weather, but I really believe I also like the city, maybe with a little bit of rain.
Yeah, but we will not talk about Stockholm as a city today. We are going to talk about much more important things, such as lessons learned for the civil society to meet and counter authoritarianism in Poland. Yeah. And finally with a successful election outcome as well in the last election. And we will also touch upon issues, how this is related to the overall security situation. But just let us start today, because in Sweden we had a lot of reporting about Poland before the election, how important it was, and of course the election and the aftermath right after the election. But then Poland has kind of disappeared from our headlines in Sweden. Could you just give us a short introduction on where is Poland today after the election? How would you describe Poland now, several months after the election?
Okay, so we are starting with difficult questions. The reason that Poland disappeared from your media is that nothing is actually happening. And this is raising the feeling of anger, frustration in civil society. So before the elections, we were all mobilized. Many of us were super, super tired, but we had this one goal that we had to reach. So elections, let's push law and justice out of power. And what I have to admit is that although we all were working pretty hard, not many of us actually believed we are going to win these elections. So we had no plan, no idea what to do after. When I saw the exit polls, I was still standing in line to vote. I was standing in line to vote for 3.5 hours during this election. And we were all happy. People were crying. People were celebrating in this queue, seeing that it is really possible to push law and justice. But then there was a little bit of a fear. What is going to happen now, actually? So now we have a government that is eager to meet with us. We already met many of the NGOs, many of the civil rights defenders met already with the government. They are eager to listen to us. Some of them, they have a background in the civil society, so they use even the same language as we use, but there is no outcome. The first thing that we asked as an LGBTQ community was the introduction of anti-hate speech law. This is a law that is already existing in Poland. It's just covering Catholics, not LGBTQ people. So we asked to add 2 words, sexual orientation, to an already existing law. It's been 6 months. Nothing. It is fortunately working, and maybe it will happen within the next 2 months. We will see. But I really do believe that even the opposition that won was not really ready for the winning. They had no actual plan on how to rebuild the democracy, how to take back what was being taken by law and justice and the right wing. And they are doing a lot of things, but not so many things are very visible because there are not so many big of successes or big changes except for public media that was being taken first. So that's why probably there is no media coverage, because there is not so much things that are actually happening. And that brings us to the situation where people at first were so happy, so elevated, so big, feeling like, you know, like they achieved something successful, and now are asking, where's the outcome? We did all of this work. We did all of this. We pushed law and justice for you. Why are you not doing anything? So the frustration with the new government is growing bigger and bigger. We already had another elections, local elections in Poland at the beginning of April. And in many places, law and justice won again. Because people are frustrated. This is one thing. The second thing, people were not mobilized anymore. We had 70% of people going to vote polls in the autumn. And now, again, only 50%. So this is the usual number. Only half of Polish people are voting. So we lost a little bit of the power, I believe. There is a huge frustration going on. And I'm actually, again, scared for the European elections.
So the discrepancy between the 70 and the 50, it's basically describing the difference between the law and justice success versus the democratic forces success. So getting people to the polls are important.
Absolutely.
But if I stay here a little bit around what was happening in Poland after the election, weren't the opposition prepared what to do when they entered power? Was this not something that they expected to happen?
I believe they didn't.
So it was kind of the final battle for democracy, and they thought that they would lose.
I mean, there is a difference between being hopeful and being prepared. I do believe that a lot of people had hope. I was one of them. But there were many of my friends who said, Julia, we are not going to win this. So what I think was our biggest mistake was that we were so focused for 8 years on surviving, on reacting on what law and justice is doing, that we had no time to actually sit down, so do something that you are doing right now, and have a thought, okay, what if? What we want to have to happen within the next 5, 10, 15 years. So a lot of our talks were oriented on the current situation, not on the future. And we were really, really frustrated around May, June last year when we were pushing all of the power, all of the resources to these pro-frequency campaigns, and opposition was giving us nothing. Like no concrete, no propositions that we could actually take from. Civic Platform, they prepared this 100 things to achieve after they won. Only 1 month before the elections, they published it. And they fulfilled 12 out of the 100 that they were promising to fulfill in 3 months. So again, people are frustrated, angry. They are not delivering what they promised, because what they promised was it was impossible. It was impossible to happen. It was impossible to actually realize, to do in these 3 months. So I do believe that we were hopeful, that we were promising big things, but there was no actual plan on how to deliver it.
And now you mentioned you're worried about the European Parliament election coming up here in June. What are you seeing happening now?
If, again, people are not going to get motivated to vote, then we will have the majority from Law and Justice entering European Parliament, cooperating with Hungary, again, to stop a lot of good things that the European Union wanted to pass, and also to actually stop maybe help for Ukraine or other important, for the security of Europe, important issues. So what we have to always remember is that I do believe that voters of right wing, they are highly mobilized. They are always there. They will go to vote with the hurricane, plague, COVID, doesn't matter. They are going to go to the polls. What we have to somehow manage is to mobilize this middle, this movable middle, and to mobilize them all the time, because we did mobilize them in the autumn. We didn't mobilize them for local elections. And now in many, many places, the law and justice is still in power.
I would like to go back a bit in time and history here to understand what happened in Poland that led to the successes of authoritarianism in Poland and the successes of law and justice. How did they come to power?
What? Money. Oh yeah, that's one thing, obviously. But beside the money, I feel like we cannot underestimate the role of the church in Polish system. The Catholic Church is strongly connected to Polish politics, to Polish society. They have a really, really strong influence. Not anymore, because of the very big scandals that were were being published by the media within the last few years. But when I was growing up, the Catholic Church was everywhere. The first activism that I was doing, the real activism that I was doing, was with the Catholic Church, because there was no NGOs in my hometown. It was Catholic Church who was helping people with different struggles, with different problems, different issues. So they somehow become a very crucial part of the small communities. Civic Platform, who was ruling before Law and Justice, we have to always remember that they were also responsible for the win of Law and Justice. They were so focused on big cities that they were closing local schools in villages. They said that kids should travel to bigger cities to get an education. They were closing community centers. They were closing cultural centers in the small places, small cities. So they created a huge gap, a huge hole that was filled with Catholic Church. Catholic Church came and said, okay, we can sponsor, I don't know, vacation for your kids. We will take them to the mountains or to the sea so they can travel. We will pay for that. If you are a single mother, you are struggling, we will give you food. We will give you shelter. If you want to have like a local festival, we will give you premises. We will give you, I don't know, a band or something. So they become a really, really crucial part of the society, and they also become great friends with most of the society. So the priest in my own village is well known, is well liked by people because he's a usual guy, just a priest, right? So whenever this priest is coming to you and telling you, listen, these gay people want to come here and kidnap your kids. You have to protect them. We have to protect them. Vote for Law and Justice. You are going to do it. No questions asked. Because you believe them, not Donald Tusk or some politician in the media. You are believing people who are there for you, who are supporting you, who are well connected to you. So that was the one thing that absolutely, they destroyed the local communities. I mean Civic Platform. A second thing is that Civic Platform was so focused on European Union and on telling Polish people that we should catch up with European Union, that we should catch up with Germany, that we should go forward into this like Western ideas, that we should change our economy, that Polish people kind of started feeling that we are being interfered in European Union, and then Law and Justice came and said, we are going to give you back your dignity.
Make Poland great again.
Let's make Poland great again. Let's wake up. Let's rise up from our knees. We are not going to beg this ugly Germany or this ugly European Union for things. We are going to do it ourselves. And for many people, that was like, yeah, let's do it. That makes sense. Many things that it's like populist work, right? They have these simple ideas, simple promises that are going deep to people. It was also the time that the economical crisis was, starting in Poland. People had no money to provide for families, and Law and Justice promised that this money is going to be back. And also Law and Justice said, let's stop with this feminist nonsense. Women will stay in home, take care of kids. Men will provide for this family. We will recreate the safeness that we had for so many years. And again, for a lot of people, this sense of safety was so important that they decided to vote for them, not once, but twice. We have to remember that at the beginning of the Law and Justice being in power, they were actually, I don't know, convincing people. People were believing them.
They were addressing things that people could relate to.
Yeah.
In contrast to the civic platform.
Yes, and they were attacking migrants. This was this big anti-migrant campaign at the beginning of their being in power. And on one hand, it was re-established this sense of security that people needed. This is one thing, but the second thing is we have absolutely no refugees in Poland. I've never met a refugee myself, except for people who are coming to Warsaw Pride. So whenever they were talking about them, whenever they were making them the bad guys, the really scary people, it was easy to believe because no one knew them. So it was like, yeah, if they are telling this to us, then this must be true. So the first campaign they used, because the second campaign was against LGBTQ people, but the first campaign was also very successful because people didn't knew these migrants, these refugees. So it was also very believable for them. Yeah.
When did you start to realize that the democracy and freedom in Poland started to be in danger? Do you have a moment where you can say this was when I realized it, or woke up, or decided to act to stop it?
I have to admit that as a lesbian, as a woman in Poland, I've never felt like I'm being raised in a democratic country. I didn't got the sense that we are losing democracy during Law and Justice because I didn't believe we have democracy before. We had no rights. We still have no rights. Abortion is still banned in Poland. Nothing was available. And it's not like before Law and Justice civic platform was so eager to cooperate with civil society. We have to remember that because right now we are always portraying Law and Justice as the bad guys, and they are, of course. I'm not trying to say otherwise. But we are forgetting that this is civic platform who made the space for them to come to power and to become bad guys. And this is civic platform who didn't want to ratify Istanbul Convention, who froze equal partnerships, anti-hate speech law, gender recognition in 2012. So this is not like I felt I was living this democratic dream and then it was taken away from me. From the very, very beginning of my life, I felt there are huge inequalities in Poland and the government didn't want to address them.
Could you describe how you were working together with others in Poland in order to mobilize civil society in defending the freedoms that were taken away and trying to expand the freedoms that never were there?
So this is going to be a controversial answer because I do believe that Swedish media portrayed our success as this really well-coordinated machine. It was not. It was really a mess. We weren't really coordinated. There were so many little campaigns. Everyone was doing their own thing because there was no time to coordinate and no way to coordinate. But what we did that actually helped was this building bridges between different movements. So when I became president of Warsaw Pride, I was 21. That was really 9 years ago. I really felt like we are all fighting the same system, the same oppression. It doesn't matter if it's LGBTQ people, women, or people with disabilities. We all want the same, more or less, the same thing. It differs with the laws, with the technicalities, but we want the same thing. So I started to invite people to Warsaw Pride. We do not have Warsaw Pride itself as the name. We have Equality Parade, so it was a little bit easier to involve everyone. I was coming from a feminist movement back then, so I just called my friends and say, hey, what do you say? Feminists on Pride. Sounds good, right? Mm. And they joined. We invited people with disabilities. They said absolutely no, we hate LGBTQ people. But next year, they were occupying parliament. They were having their own protest. We were providing them with food, with water. We were supporting them, and we dedicated Warsaw Pride for them. Mm. And next year, they joined, and they are with us ever since. We were the third country in the world where Greenpeace joined the Pride. That was a huge success. So it was more about the connection, about getting to know each other, about learning about our difficulties. But we were still reinventing the wheels. I had this feeling that everyone is still doing their own thing. So then the Polish Pride Alliance has happened. Me and my best friend, we decided, hey, that's a controversial thing to say in LGBTQ community in Poland, but let's come together, let's do the alliance, and let's stop reinventing the wheel. Let's use the resources that we already have and spread them. And I really believe that people felt the need of connection, of connecting. We were giving contacts, we were joining different venues, different events, different marches, to make sure that we support the different movements as an LGBTQ people also. And this was the biggest thing that we did, to connect, to know each other, to spread the resources. And this is not an easy thing to do, I know, especially with grants, money, and all of that. But whenever, I don't know, a journalist from different country was calling me and asking me about abortion, I was not giving an answer myself. I was referring him to other activists. I did have the knowledge. I could have given this interview, but I made this decision that I'm not going to collect all of my resources and I'm going to spread them. Did it work backwards? Not always, sometimes, of course. But I believe that someone has to start, right? And right now, after we won, I feel like we are coming back to the old times, that everyone is right now, again, protecting the resources that we are sharing before. But maybe it will pass. Maybe after this frustration is going a little bit down, it will pass. But I'm so impressed with what I'm observing here in Stockholm is what you're doing right now. Reconnecting, connecting, getting to know each other before the crisis is occurring, before the crisis is coming. Because if we are not learning to trust each other, to trust that there are other people who are doing also a good job, that I'm not the only one who knows the best and who have to do everything. This is the only way that we can actually engage more people and fight back.
What you're describing is the strength for the civil society.
Yeah. Is it possible though? This is a question. Can we all step back and say, I'm not the wisest, the best, the only one? This is a question that everyone has to answer themselves.
It should be an easy yes, because in a room full of people there is always someone who knows things better than you.
I don't think that
in different aspects.
I don't think that everyone is giving a yes answer to that question. Not only in Poland, but in many other places.
But that approach that you're describing was a success, and that you managed to take this out in bad times, and now the question mark is there. But if you look a couple of years from now, are you optimist or pessimist?
I'm always an optimist. And I will tell you why. Because growing up, I was not very proud of being Polish. I was being raised in a very patriotic family, I have to say. I knew the anthem of Poland. I knew all of the things. My grandparents, they were pretty proud of our country, so they were always talking about Poland in like very superlative, very positive way. But I couldn't understand that a lot because I was seeing all of these inequalities. I was growing up in a quite a small town. Nothing was happening there. We had one cinema, one festival per year. It was a pretty dead town. So I was like, what's to be proud of? And then the Russian attack on Ukraine happened. And we received so many refugees. And Polish people stood up. And 90% of our society did something for Ukrainian refugees. And that was the first time I was so proud. I was so proud of being Polish. I was so proud of my own country, of my own people. That was maybe the first time I actually called them my own people. I'm a queer person, so I do not believe in borders a lot. I have a stronger connection. I always had a stronger connection with my queer siblings from different countries than with people from my own country. But I feel like this showed to people that you don't have to be an activist to actually change something and to do something good. To see so many people seeing something really bad happening and people being in need and saying, okay, I'm not going to vacation this year because I'm going to donate this money to the cause. That was amazing. And that's why I'm positive, because I do believe that Polish people have it in them. Maybe I didn't believe that before that much, but now I see it, I saw it. And I do believe that they finally see that European Union is, in European values, is for the best of everyone. That it's not like LGBTQ people or feminists, they want some special treatment, but we want better life for everyone. So I am quite optimistic, I have to say. I know that right now our government is a little bit slow, but they still have 3.5 years of being in power. I do believe that they are going to deliver at least some of the things that are important to us. Maybe not equal marriage yet for Poland, but at least equal partnerships. At least better treatment of trans people, I hope. So I still feel like even though they had maybe not a very well-developed plan, they really want these changes to happen. So all we can do as a civil society right now is to support them and is to give them directions whenever they need them, give them ideas whenever they need them. And I think it's a bit too early to actually give them a grade if they're going good enough or not.
We'll save the grades for some more time for the new government. But now you touched upon an aspect that I would like to raise in the conversation. You touched upon Russia and what Russia is doing, and we know that Russia and other forces like China also would like to see democracy go back in the world. They are standing up for a different set of values. And we also know that Russia has weaponized hatred as a tool in general, but particularly against the LGBT movement in Russia and elsewhere, in its global ecosystem as well, and with its tools like the Moscow Patriarchate of the Russian Orthodox Church. When you look at it and how what Russia has done also affects Poland in this matter, what do you see here?
So for many, many years, especially during Law and Justice, the Russia has really, really strong influence, not only as ideology, but also with money, obviously, to the right-wing NGOs and to some of our politicians. So we had a really strong connection between especially Ordo Juris, that is the biggest right-wing NGO in Poland, with money, absolutely. Crazy amount of money that were being sent by Russia to them. And we also observed when the invasion of Russia has started and how they froze the accounts of Russia and they couldn't make the transfer, and how this NGO were sending newsletters saying, "Hi, we need money, please send it to us." So that was very, very quick, one day after. So we had this really, really strong influence, but what we cannot forget about is a strong Russophobic sentiments in Poland. So right now, these right-wing politicians, these neo-Nazi politicians that were supported by Russia are actually losing the support of people because no one wants to be connected to Russia anymore. So in some sense, it was actually beneficial for us that they finally showed their true faces. Of course, we have a minority, especially young men, that are still voting for these people, that are still supporting these people. And it's again because they are promising them to give them back the dignity of a strong man providing for family, which is in current economical system absolutely impossible in Polish families. So we still have some people, but it's again minority. A lot of people are watching them and just for a laugh, just because it's a comedy for them what they are doing. So I feel like Russia is losing the support that they were having in Poland. Also, a lot of people right now are actually scared that the invasion is going to move from Ukraine to Poland. There are many people who are creating this atmosphere that the war is going to come to Poland. Some people are really, really feared of that. That's why we are observing the rise of support for European Union, apparently. NATO, they are fine now. They weren't before. So I would say that this situation is a little bit beneficial for the security awareness situation in Poland. Surprisingly.
And we should perhaps also add that Poland reaches 4% of GDP in defense spending this year, which makes it, I think it's the highest in European Union. I think perhaps Greece
sure
is perhaps higher in percentage, but it's substantial.
Yeah, but we are also the first in Europe of cybersecurity. The whole situation in Ukraine changed a lot of the things that were happening with our cybersecurity systems. I'm working for a public university. The amount of changes that happened within the last 2 years with our even emails, and I'm teaching animal science, okay? This is nothing like they can actually use. But a lot of things were actually changing. We are getting a lot of passwords, a lot of changes with how can we actually use our inboxes or the things that are belong to the university. So on one hand, I really do believe that Law and Justice would like to go with this Russia direction. We had an NGO sponsored by Law and Justice proposing the same anti-LGBTQ propaganda law to our parliament that Russia has, but they had to withdraw it. They have to get out of it because people were like, okay, maybe we don't love LGBTQ people, but this is too much. We also don't want to become Russia. We also don't want Russia to invade us. We also want to live in a security of European Union. So there is a slight change in the atmosphere, I would say, and there are more and more people who are getting aware of the situation, because before, if you would ask any random person on a street of Warsaw, oh, what do you think about our security system in Poland? I would say that they are like, I don't know what you're talking about. And now people are actually getting interested.
I would like to add another country into the equation, and of course I'm referring now to the United States and what's going to happen in the United States in November with the election, and the possibility that Donald Trump returns to the presidency, and that he is also trying to mobilize hatred against LGBT people and so on. How important would you say that the American election is for the democratic world?
And this is super important, not only for the democratic world, but also for Poland. With this anti-Russia sentiment, we have very, very pro-American sentiment. So The change for Biden was also a very important factor of Law and Justice getting out of power, because they lost the connection, they lost the support, they lost the same values as they had with Trump, I would say. So if really Donald Trump is coming back, then first of all, it's a strong threat for the security of Ukraine, and this is a threat of the security of all of us, of the whole European Union. But it will also, again, make a space for these people that are right now feeling that they cannot be vocal or are being shushed out to rise again. Because this is what happened when Law and Justice came to power. People who were far, far right, neo-Nazis, they felt like this is our time to shine. Now we can have voice. You know, when I was growing up, and again, as I already mentioned, it was not a very fairy tale-ish childhood, but being a Nazi, using swastika, liking Hitler, that was like strong no, like, oh my God, no. And even with the really conservative colleagues of mine in high school, that was like a line that no one would actually cross. There were some crazy people in the middle of the woods making birthday of Hitler, and everyone was like, oh my God, that's really bad, we have to prosecute them. And then this changed. This sentiment, these words that were being used. When I was growing up, it was really like, it was not cool to be racist. We didn't have that much people of color in Poland, especially in a small city of mine, but it was not cool to say black people are bad or in any way. And then Law and Justice came to power, and apparently it's fine. It's fine to say that Arabs are bad. It's fine to say that black people are bad. Neo-Nazis started to raise and draw swastikas all over the buildings. They created a space for people who were not welcomed in the public spaces before to come back, to actually use words that were banned before and say this is a freedom of speech. To say that we should kill all of the refugees that are trying to invade us, that we should kill trans people, that we should get LGBTQ people out of our countries. This kind of words were not welcome before in the public discourse. And I was also observing this around my family, my own people, my own circles, that, everyone has an uncle that is a little bit racist, maybe, but they are not talking about it, at the Christmas table. It's switched. A lot of young people were reporting that they had fights with families during Christmas because people were open to start these very political topics during the public gatherings that were before pretty much of a taboo. So what I believe right now we need is rest, is quiet, is reinforce the dialogue that was being completely jeopardized by right wing. And I think that we do have all scars that needs time to heal in Poland. That's why I'm so optimistic, because I do believe we can heal. And I do believe that within this 4 years of new government, we not only can heal, but we can also rebuild and fix some of the issues that we were observing during the Law and Justice.
I think this is a beautiful spot to end our part of the conversation. But before I let the floor in, I have one final question. If you just could hammer out or summarize some key lessons learned from Poland that you would like to pass on to the Swedish audience.
Yeah. So the first thing is, please do not accept even a small amount of this discourse being called, it's a freedom of speech. Because this is what happened with Law and Justice. People were like, it's a diverse politician, or it's just a diverse discussion. It is not. It is a hate speech, and we should actually address it as it is. It is a little bit easier in Sweden because you have an anti-hate speech law, as I'm aware, we didn't have it. We don't have it in Poland, so we really couldn't use it that much. The second thing is the connection. I feel like we have a really young democracy in Poland and a really young civil society. So it was crucial for us to get to know each other, to get well connected with different actors, with different topics. You never know when you would need someone who is specializing with animal science. Here I am for you.
Good, we know where to go.
Because, you know, when I was entering activism, really few years back, I was not expecting ever to work with the migration of refugees. It was just never a topic of mine. It was not a really hot topic in Poland ever. So I had no expertise in that topic. And then when we started to receive Ukrainian refugees, especially queer Ukrainian refugees, I already had contacts to NGOs who could help me, to provide me with insights of how to actually help these refugees, because one thing was provide food and shelter, and the other thing was to be aware of this special psychological situation they were in. How can we actually help them? How can we make sure that they feel safe and free in the country that is not still very open and very good for LGBTQ people? So the connections. And the third, the most important thing, spend some time on preparation and different scenarios. Because if we spend a little bit more time on these different scenarios, maybe we would be still mobilized and still well coordinated, and we are not anymore. I think that every movement right now is trying to do something, but we lost this power that we had as a one movement that wanted to move law and justice out of power. So not only to have a general idea where we want our democracy, our country to be within the next 5, 10, 15 years, but also have a plan of like a crucial points that have to happen during this time, and how can we achieve it? Because it's one thing to say really nice words, oh, we want an open country for everyone, and it's another thing to have an actual plan step by step of how we want to achieve it. How can we achieve it?
So, don't accept hate speech, connect within civil society, don't forget your preparations and scenarios. Your free takeaway.
Yeah.
And now
strategy.
And now we open up the floor for questions, and there is a microphone also, so you end up on tape with your question.
Do you want some water?
I have a little bit.
Actually, I want to comment on what you said. I am much older, and I came of age in '89, and I was hoping, like other people around me, to have civil society as the most important goal, right? Year 91.
Yeah.
It never happened. People do other homeworks on that lesson at school, and that's still so. So it's been 35 years, and nothing really happened. Never has any government stayed longer than 2 mandate periods. Never. So I was quite expecting whoever to win this time, because that's exactly what happens in Poland ever since I remember. So when people who are not in politics are looking at the government, although it is not either my government, they have so much to do. The whole legal infrastructure is ruined. It's like in pieces. So there is so much to do. And because I am a politician, so I have these friends, Nowacka and so on. And so I'm watching it from my home in Sweden, because I just couldn't stay in Poland after this change. And so like having those different perspectives makes you see what really needs to be done in Poland. One, if you want to win an election, you have to count your votes and do it through the whole mandate period, not just half a year before the election.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, and it never happens. Never happens. I don't know why. Another thing, still, after so many years, people think that party is that party that we had, the one that we had before '89. But I was the vice president of the feminist party, the Partia Kobiet,
Yeah.
and actually I could see it from the inside. All those laws taking back and so on. Also Congress Kobiet, who is not so close to our needs. Now Tusk, who is still 8 years older, with his conservatism that is disguised, and so on. So what I did is, instead of being an activist within NGOs, because NGOs only fix the holes in the law that lawmakers made, we became politicians, because that's where laws are made. So instead of trying to, and especially because in Poland, all the organizations are getting smaller and smaller, and all the chairs are fighting with one another, so there is no like growing in power. It's diminishing all the time. So the only thing that, and I think I managed quite well, was to convince people from our groups, like in my case, women, all kinds of women, to use their passive vote right. So I have like Eva Lider, Hanka Piątek, Gil Piątek, and so on. I have like, you know, many friends who are female politicians who started thinking my way. Like, stop, you know, putting patches onto the system and create the system instead. So I see that. And in my time, I created a coalition of, or a network of the Polish, Swedish, German, and Spanish feministiskt initiative, all versions. So we put Soraya Post with my program to the European Parliament. Was it 16?
The election was 14.
Okay, 14.
Could you try to summarize up? Thanks.
So I have just a very different perspective and very different solutions, but I can see that young people are just, you know, brought up with religion at school, and things that are outrageous to me are acceptable for many young people in Poland just now. And still, after 35 years, the word party or party politics is like a no-no. It's not good to go there. But how can we change anything without it? So
I don't think that this is actually a very different opinion, because a lot of activists joined the politics this year. Some from Polish Pride Alliance, they actually got involved on the local level, not on the national level. But the issue that we have with political parties in Poland is that they not only don't want to invite women, but especially not young people. If you look at the, you know, middle age, the age in our parliament, it's people after 50. We don't have young people who are actually being invited to be on the list, except for Lewica or for the far right. And I mean, I love Barbara Nowacka, but she was an activist also before. We did an activism together when I was in feminist movement 12 years ago. So right now, I also don't feel represented by her, because she had to lower some of her opinions to become a part of Civic Platform, because the only way you can actually enter right now the politics, you have to become a part of one of these big parties, Law and Justice or Civic Platform. There's no other way.
Could we?
I mean, Civic Platform,
move on
because the coalition is.
With a question.
Yeah, I actually have a question in connection to that. You mentioned that prior to Law and Justice, it was the civic platform and their politics that made it possible for Law and Justice to win the election, was it 8.5 years ago? Do you see the civic platform, or is it an alliance now? Is it a civic platform together with the opposition? Coalition. Do you see any changes in their politics? Can you trust the politics to take in the whole country and the needs?
I'm an activist. I'm never trusting politicians.
That was a quick answer.
No, but this is a bit difficult because, as I said, we want to support the new government to actually make the changes. But what we still have to remember is what you actually said a few seconds ago. Donald Tusk is still in power, just 8 years older. And we had polls being done before this election saying 70% of our society wants equal partnerships for LGBTQ people. 90% of civic platform, so the coalition voters, wants this. Have you ever heard Donald Tusk using the word LGBTQ people, queer people? He's not even using the word. He's pretending we do not exist. So do I see the change within the party itself? Yes, because there are more people who are eager to push for this. Barbara Nowacka being one of them, Gajewska being second, Monika Rosa. There are great women who are supportive, who are proposing the laws, who are eager to fight for it. So I do see the change within the party. Do they have enough power to do it? This I'm not sure. Because at the end of the day, I don't understand, if you have so many polls being done, why are you still so scared of standing up for this? Civic platform, and I'm just using this as it's simplification. They still, I don't know why, but they still want to attract conservative electorate. And the conservative electorate is not going to vote for them. But by attracting them, by mingling with them, they are losing young people, and they don't want to vote. And that's why there is such a big difference between the autumn election and the local election that happened in April, because young people said, we are not going to do it anymore.
And we have time with a final short question and a short answer.
Oh, that's not an easy thing, but okay.
Yes, hello. One of the things we're seeing in Sweden right now is a quite big drop in trust in the political system and in the democratic principles and respect for human rights, especially amongst young men. We're seeing that if it's 1/4 or 1/5 of young men in Sweden don't believe that democracy is the best way to govern our country. Yeah. I was just wondering a bit about the changes in the value systems of the electorate, and especially in young people in Poland, and how that may have changed the playing field for politics in general. If you could just tell us a bit about that. Thank you.
So the young people are absolutely not aware of how our lives looked like before European Union. They are in European Union, they know no borders, they can travel whenever they want, wherever they want, they can study wherever they want, and a lot of people are using this opportunity. But what I am observing right now, of course, is a very, very big switch and a very big gap between young men and young women in Poland, just the same as in Sweden. But the question is, what was being done for these young men for the last few years? We had so many actions for young women to empower them, for them to enter politics, enter tech, IT, enter different schools. I was in so many leadership trainings for women, for young girls to make them in leadership positions. Most of our feminist NGOs are focusing on the victims of violence who are women. This is still a big taboo for a man to actually admit in Poland that they are a victim of violence anyhow. If we are talking about the sexual education, abortion, again, we are always making this about women, although in the media, of course, only men are talking about the abortion. So I feel like there are a lot of young men right now saying, I'm struggling too, and you are doing this all for someone else than me. And it is being used by right-wing populists saying, look at this. Look at these ugly gays who are stealing your jobs, who are stealing your opportunities, because the government wants to pay for Pride, even though it's not true. We have no governmental, no public money. They want to pay for the gays, not for you. There is a huge gap also in our legal system, because if there is a divorce, there is 96% of chance that the woman is getting kids. And this is for various reasons. Of course, many of fathers don't want to have anything with their kids, but the ones who have it hard time to actually access this. And I know that in Sweden you have also a little bit different system with that. So the question is, what have we done to actually reach these young men? How we were approaching them? Did we make sure that they also feel safe in this very dynamic environment? And trust me, 8 years ago, I would never think that I will be saying this, what I'm saying right now. But what have we actually done for my colleagues? Because when I was growing up, I was being raised to be a great mother and a great wife. And they were being raised to provide for families, which is right now impossible. So they feel like they are failing. They feel like they have no opportunity to actually gain support, because the mental health issues is a huge taboo in Poland, but it's okay for women to be depressed. It's not okay for a man. The whole system that was being created to support women to enter different spaces somehow is excluding some men. They have to move, they have to make space for women. So they feel, they think about it as a disadvantage for them, right? So did we actually had any conversation with them, explaining why democracy is beneficial for them too? Explaining that support for families is a support for them too. Making sure that they feel involved in the whole process. I don't think we did anything in Poland for the last few years.
Thank you, Julia.
Yes.